President GSSL, for giving a kind introduction and also inviting me to deliver this topic or presentation. And also, I must thank the executive committee members of GSSL organizing this kind of public speech series, because as a geologist community, we need to engage with this kind of CPD programs. So thank you very much for all, and it's a great privilege and honor to deliver this speech in this forum. Thank you very much again. So my topic is towards sustainable mineral resource management with effective mineral policy. Why we talked about sustainable mineral resource management or sustainable mineral industry? Because mineral industries always deal with the mining and processing. That is always we talked about as a environmental not friendly industry. And also minerals are non-renewable resources or non-renewable natural resources. Then we have to have a sustainable mineral industry or sustainable management of these resources. That's why my topics, I decided to use the term sustainability. And also to have this sustainable mineral industry, we need to have a effective mineral policy. Why we need effective mineral policy? Because if just having a mineral policy, we can't have a sustainable mineral industry or sustainable management of mineral resources. That's why we think we must have a effective, because if it is ineffective, there's no use. So we need effective mineral policy. That's my topic. So if I just give my introduction to my talk, so I'm going to talk about mineral industry, mineral policy, and plus how these things to link to the national policy and global mineral industry. And finally, I'm going to talk about what is the status of our mineral industry, and then where we should go. That's what my outline of the presentation. So these three pillars, like I can say, mineral industry, mineral policy, and national policy, all comes in a same circle, and they have strong links. We can't develop mineral policy alone. It's alone without thinking the national policy. Also, we can't think or we can't develop mineral policy without knowing our mineral industry, our own mineral industry. That is a key criteria we have to consider, right? That's why I put these things in the same circle, because they are in the same circle. If you just try to develop mineral policy without thinking others do, we can't develop effective mineral policy. That's why I thought we should think about all these three. Then firstly, I'm going to give you some introduction about mineral industry. What is mineral industry? That includes several activities: mineral exploration, extraction of mining, processing or value addition, then product development and trading. All these things comes under mineral industry. So when you develop a mineral policy, we have to think about, or we have to address all these activities: mineral exploration, mining, processing, product development, and trading, right? And simply we can say mineral industry is a key player of supplying raw material for the industry. Mineral industry always need to provide raw material for the industry in various sectors of industry, I can say, including manufacturing, construction, energy, agriculture, technology, and all these things need raw materials from the mineral industry. Without minerals or minerals product, can we live? If you just think for a minute, you can understand without those things, we can't live. So we need to have a mineral industry or mineral raw material to live in this world. And so that's why I just say the minerals and the human lifestyles are we can put face to face because we need minerals to live because our whole lifestyle, our changes, everything depend on the mineral product. If you just think, even if you go to the kitchen or vehicle or if you use handphone, every product you face, we need minerals, right? Minerals develop mineral products, then we use. Without having mineral product, it's very difficult to live in this world. Oh, because always our lifestyle depend on the mineral product, right? That's the just introduction about the mineral industry. So I'm not going to explain much because as a geologist and we are dealing with mineral industry, we know what is mineral industry. But I told you that we need to have a proper understanding about the national policies when you develop the mineral policy. What is a national policy? National policy is a set of plans, or we call principles, or guidance, or even you can say goals or strategies adopted by a nations or the government of the country. What it means? Because we even some countries based on their policies that is developed or adopted by nations or sometime in the government, right? So national policies based on the different countries, their strategies, their goals, their plans and everything, we have to develop the national policy. And national policies to guide the decision making because in the government we have different sectors, agriculture, industry, foreign affairs, security, like that, different sectors. So if we don't have a national policy, very hard to make decision. So for a decision making process, we need to have a national policy. So every country, each and every country, they have national policies. Normally, they develop for maybe 20 years or 30 years because that has to be changed again because we can't have a fixed national policy forever. Why? Because that also affect on so many changes which is happening in the globe or outside or inside of the country, right? And finally, I can say national policy is a roadmap for governance. Roadmap for governance means if there's no national policy, it's like a vessel sailing without a captain. It's going here and there. But to have a proper direction, to understand where this state should run or go or task, to which direction we should go, that is depend on the national policy. That's why I say we need to have a national policy when you talk about to govern the country. Then national policy again have different sectors or criteria. Because why I'm explaining this, when you develop a mineral policy, there is a great overlap or linked to these economic policies. Therefore, we need to have a proper understanding about these things, these criteria. For example, the major criteria for national policy is economic policy of a country. What is economic policy? I think simply or somebody can understand. Economic policy is the fiscal management or finance management, taxation, trade, investment, industrial development, employment, economic growth, such as we can say, for example, if I more elaborate on that, country should have a policy how their finance or money manage, and what is the policy on taxation, what kind of tax we should introduce, those things, and the trading, export and import. The different sectors may affect on that. For example, sometimes mineral policy also based on that because some countries based on the mineral policy or define the trades. what are the export ban, and what are the export or import encourage. Those things also depend on the policies, economic policies. Another thing is main policies, how to grow the economy of a country. Then different countries have different policies. Some countries think the main source of economic growth is from agriculture or services. Some countries say mining. For example, some agriculture, we talked about agriculture, even the US, China, Brazil, like countries, they use agricultural product for develop the economy, great part of the economy. And some countries just think, no, we go with the services. Some countries like Australia, Canada, India, even country like South Africa, they their main economic contributor is mining. And some countries say trading, like Singapore, Taiwan, and some automobile industry. For simple example, the Japan, Germany, their main task of economic growth from the automobile. And some countries, tourism, like Maldives, Seychelles, their main source of economy from the tourism. So their policies, national policies, based on that. But in Sri Lanka also, earlier we talked about our main source of economy sector is agriculture. So we said we are agricultural country. Then later, again, that has been changed to the textile and apparel industries sector. And also we talked about tourism. And also we talked about foreign employments. Like that, our economic growth, the country should have some national policy on economic growth, or that we call economic policy. Then the social policy. Social policy is mainly how government or country treat to the people, social and welfare, healthcare, educations, poverty alleviation, housing policy, social security, and all these things should have a policy. Some countries say, no, we don't have any social welfare. Some countries say, yes, all senior people must have a social welfare. Like that, there are some policies, different countries. But those things also, again, we have to think about in mineral policy, because minerals resources belongs to different nationals or countries. Then they need some benefit from these things. And mineral resources always, when you do mineral industry, when you develop the mineral industry, make or cause some impact on the social and natural environment, then our mineral policy should be aligned with social policy and the environment policy. No doubt, all you can understand, there's a great and strong link between the mineral policy and the environmental policy, because always mineral industry cause some impact on the environment. So we have to go with the environmental policy. In different nations, different countries, they have national policies on the environment. For example, some countries, they are banning use of some material, hazardous material, waste, and pollutions, controlling dust, air, water, and all these things. They have a national policy. And also some countries ban importing something, mineral or any other natural product from some other country. Those are policies. That's why when you develop our mineral policy, we have to concern the national policy on environment, because we have to align with that. Otherwise, there may be clashes, right? So that's, and also some countries say, okay, our main energy producer is from renewable energy. Some countries say no. Some say no, okay, you can use coal. Some countries say you can use petroleum, oil. But likewise, the mineral policy also should have a link to a environmental policy. So we have to have some understanding about the national policy, especially what are the international conventions, treaties, and regulations that are imposed, and those are adopted by the particular nations or the government. Need to understand. And security and defense policy, you can understand. I'm not going to elaborate much on these because that also there should be national policy, how the military and the counterterrorism and national security, and there should be a policies. And but same time, even the mineral policy, there may be some military important material, hazardous material. Oh, so relations and adaptation of some international laws and other things, agreements or bilateral agreements, trade agreements, those things also may affect on mineral industry. Why? Because some countries have some bilateral trade agreement. So when you're buying or selling a mineral product, may affect. So we have to have some understanding. And science and technology policy. Again, another one. Because R&D, especially related to mineral industry, what are the government give the concession and encourage, what are the policies on those things, fund allocation. So those things also important when you develop mineral policy, because in mineral industry also we need to have some kind of uh, 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 technology, science, R&D activities. So because especially mining, processing, value addition, product development, all these things are involved with science and technology. So we need to concern or consider this factor. Then the health and education policy. Again, in mineral industry, we have to think about in different countries have different policies, as you all know, as pre-education, pre-health, and but in mineral industry we have to think about the safety and health and safety. So if you have some uh, link to these criteria, this link to this policy may be useful. And uh, but having said all these things, what I want to show you in this slide, as I told you, in every country should have a national policy. Then all other sectorial policies like mineral policy, economic policy, environmental science and technology, all are run on the same wheel. For these two, all these things should run in the same frequency or same momentum. Otherwise, if anyone or one of these rotate or run in a different mode, different frequencies, system will not work. That's why when you develop the mineral policy, my understanding is we have to run in the same frequency with all other policies, especially national policies. Right? That's why we need national policy. Then based on that, or having such knowledge of the national policies, we have to develop the mineral policy. Here, just I want to show you the link of this mineral policy with other policies. And other thing, when you develop the national mineral policy or one of the policies, this is the protocol or hierarchy of the policy and the system of the uh, uh, legal and constitution. In a country, the top or superior document or guideline is the constitution of the country. We need to have constitution of the country. So everything depends on the constitution. Right? That's the most top document. Then we have a national policies. Then we have national policies that those national policies should be aligned or accordance with the constitution of the country. Otherwise, it will not work. Then other sectorial policies like the mineral policy, here I put the mineral policy, that accordance or align with, that should be aligned with national policy, right? So that's why we should have a constitution, then based on that national policy, based on that mineral policy. Then after these policy frameworks from constitution, national and mineral sectorial policies, we have to have a legislation, regulations and rules. Based on that policies, we need to develop those things. then act and all this. Then after that, while we need to have procedures, practices, guidelines, and all these things based on the legislations and regulations and rules. We can use them because that is the hierarchical order. Then all should have a link. Our procedures, practices, guidelines based on the legislations. Those things are based on the policies. Those policies are based on the constitution. That is the hierarchical level of these things. Right? Then, okay, that is up to this point. I'm trying to give you some idea about how these policies should be, and when you develop, what are the things you have to consider. But when you directly talked about the mineral policy, always the mineral industry. When you talked about the mineral industries, but mineral, and also the term when we use mineral resources, actually globally we use earth resources, because as a geologist we know that mineral has a particular scientific definition. If you go with that definition, we can't cover all these things, right? So better, because in the industry, practically we use all these things, all these resources. So that's why some people use earth resources or earth materials. Mineral and mining industry using earth materials or earth resources, right? Then, but according to our mineral definitions, they are not all minerals, right? They are not all minerals, but earth resources, again, we can categorize into different categories like these. This is a very brief one I'm going to highlight here. We can say industrial and technological minerals, resources or deposits, resources. Then we can say water resources. That also sometimes comes under the earth resources. Then hydrocarbons or petroleum. Mainly sometimes in the mineral resources people use them. And gems and the construction materials. All comes under minerals industry or mineral and mining industry, especially you can say mineral and mining industry, but all are earth resources. But my concern is, can we develop a single policy covering all these sectors? Covering all these sectors. Why I'm telling that? For example, if you talked about hydrocarbons or petroleum, those policies are completely different than some industrial minerals and technological mineral policy, or gem policy on gem mineral, policy on construction material. Because when you talked about petroleum, the taxation, fiscal regimes, and also international collaboration, those are different. Those are different, right? So, but if you develop the single policy to cover all these things, sometimes it's very difficult and not cover all the specific points. So therefore, when you develop a mineral policy, we have to say exactly what is our coverage. For example, mostly nowadays, what I understand, the Sri Lanka is developing the mineral policy for industrial and technological minerals. There even it's very difficult to cover construction material, especially sand, aggregate, post aggregate, because they have different policies. That's why I think few years back, even some ministries try to develop the sand policy, because different countries has different policies on construction material. For example, we can say there may be some policies. We can use river sand. Some countries say ban using river sand for the construction. Some countries say, okay, no, you can use manufactured sand. Some countries say no, sea sand. Some countries say use of sea sand is banned. Likewise, there are some policies, even the other construction material. Some even the export import. A simple example, Malaysia and India, they export sea sand and the manufactured sand to the other countries, but recently they ban it according to their policies. Right? Likewise, they have a different policy. That's why I say if you use one single policy for all covering all these things, maybe not viable. Even the water resources, the policy on water management is different, right? even the gems, they are trading, mining, and those things are different. So if you put into the same basket, the policy, sometime there may be some confusion or some clashes. So that's why I say when you develop the mineral policy, we have to consider these factors. And now I directly go on to the mineral policy. What are the sectors? What are the criteria we have to use in mineral policy? First criteria, mineral resource management and exploration. There should be a policy on that. Why I'm telling that? Because exploration, especially, we need to have a proper method to identify mineral resources and their quality and quantitative analysis, and also then only we can manage and we can assess the economic viability or how we can develop these mineral resources. Then there should be a policy. When you develop this policy, we have to think about other factors. For example, uh, exploration. There are new technologies changing even for the geophysical, geochemical, or even other remote sensing, whatever the techniques are changing. And if you develop some policy without thinking those things, sometimes it's not viable, because even some, for example, we say, okay, you can explore the ground on like the parcel, land parcel like this, whatever. But nowadays, that technology is most advanced into the airborne technologies, like a drone or whatever, the airborne geophysical surveys and those things. And sometimes our policies will not match with the technology. And also the resource assessment and reporting. All these things should have some policies, especially standard, exploration standard, report standard. Those things should have a policy. Otherwise, we can't manage this. Right? Because the guide, there should be a policy, then based on them, there should be a guideline. These are the standard we need if you do the exploration. These are the standard we need to have a report, exploration reports. Those things depend on the policies, right? So that's why the policy document should include this part. Then licensing and permit. That's also another part of the policy, because all these things need to regulate. When you do the regulations, we need to give the licensing and permit. So there are so many kind of permits at the moment. Even in Sri Lanka is practicing like exploration license, mining license, and processing license, trading license, like that, transport license. But those should have in a policy, right? So I think that is we are practicing. So the in policy we should include how we can regulate the mineral industry. And another important thing, we should have a policy on ownership of the mineral resources and the land rights. What is the policy? In some countries say land rights only belongs to the state. All land rights belong to the state. Some countries, the people. Some countries, different ways. In like Sri Lanka, government also has some land rights, people, and different things are. Then the issue is here. What I can see, land, but the mineral right. Who are the owner of the minerals? But in Sri Lanka, yes, properly say, some countries say land right and the mineral rights are the owner of the land. But here, land ownership are not, landowners are not have a right to get the minerals. Mineral rights are to the government. But what is the issue there? If you have a land, right, then but there's a mineral resources, very valuable mineral resources. But no one can extract those. No one can mine, because there should be some compromising or some consent to get these things from the land right. But yes, but then is there any authority to get these things? According to my knowledge, no. Then what is the policy? That's why we need to have a policy about land right. And also, again, I want to highlight here land use practice, land use policy. in Sri Lanka, it's a very severe issue. Why I'm saying that? Some lands, they are they have very valuable mineral resources. They are maybe good, but at the moment they are used as an agricultural land or used for the agricultural crops, which we can use for anywhere. But still, the landowner or that land use practices for the agriculture, then we can't use that mineral resources forever. Same other way, even some land they have very uh, devalued minerals resources, and they are doing some mining, but those lands are very good for the agriculture. But still, that landowner need to do the mine. Likewise, we need to have a proper land use policy, having some privatization. Without having privatization, we can't solve this problem. That's why always we have a social, environmental, many issues with this mining industry, because we are not having land use policy, and also we don't have a proper policy on the land right, mineral rights, and even the land use. Right. So that is the thing we have to address in our mineral policy. And the next one is the royalty and taxation. Right. So every country has taxation policy and royalty, but even the mineral sector, as I told you, in Sri Lanka, we say mineral right to the government. Government mean state. State mean the people. So how we can get these royalty or taxes from the mineral industry? There should be a policy. Different countries use different policies. For example, some minerals are very valuable and marketable, and some are not like that. Some are highly purity is very high. Example, our vein graphite and vein quartz. But still the vein graphites mining is very expensive. You want to go to the underground deep and deeper. Then when you mine, it's a very expensive business. Then when you develop our royalty system, we have to consider all those things. Some minerals easily you can mine, you can trade. Some minerals, again, we have to do a lot of processing, very expensive processing. Then when you processing, we have to think about how to develop the royalty system. So that is depend on our policy. Royalty policy should be depend on the mineral resource, value addition, product development, market, and our availability of the mineral resources. So based on all these things, we have to develop the royalty policy. And health and safety, other thing, as I told you earlier also, in mineral industry always deal with the not a very compatible or comfort environment. So we have to have some policy on labors and surrounding environment, communities, health and safety standard. So we need to have a proper policy on how to have a proper comfort environment for the mining. And the technology and innovation, another thing we have to discuss in the mineral policy, because R&D and technology, available technology, and how, if there's no technology in the country, how to import those things, how to have a joint venture, those things we should have in our policy. Otherwise, we can't develop, especially the value addition. When you talked about value addition, we need to have a technology or knowledge or science and research, those things, how to encourage, or what are the areas we need to encourage. Those things are should be written in the policy. And the investment policy, again, what is that? That means the local investment or international foreign investment, and what are their what are the benefits they should give, or what are the limitations, or other restrictions. Everything should be discussed in that policy. And other thing is a trading, import and export. Even the mineral industry, you know that in some countries they ban different minerals, especially some radioactive minerals and some other minerals. Some imports also ban based on, like, you know, that is even the agricultural sector, you know that there are some ban in for export and import. Same way, even the mineral industry, if you have a proper analysis, we can develop the policy on export and import. Then, the most importantly, I can tell you environmental and social security, because mining and processing of minerals especially cause severe impact on both natural and social environment. Therefore, how to uh, avoid those things and how to compensate those things, we need to have explained in a policy. For example, environment, mining, and especially we have to talk about reclamation and restoration of mining site, how to build back better, or water management, air quality control, waste disposal controls and guidelines. Those things, how to develop these guidelines based on the proper policy. So there should be a policy, especially the mining sites, to avoid these hazards. And other thing is, there should another thing, you know, if you have any mine, you all know that there can be impact on both natural and surrounding community, social environment. Then how to share the benefits of the mine owner? Some company, international or multinational company, come and do some mine, but they damage the environment, they pollute the environment, but all the people around this mine is suffered from that. But they get all the benefits, they get the profit, they went, they go out. That should not be the happen, right? So we need to protect the people. How to compensate? There should be a policy on that, right? Developing some funds, or how to distribute this their income to the people, and those things must be in a policy document. So how to compensate the damage caused to the natural and social environment. For example, it's like a global carbon fund, because you know that the people who emit the carbon dioxide to the industries have to pay. Then those who reduce the emission of carbon industry, protect the environment, they get the benefit. Like that, there should be a policy. And also even the mining industry, those who damage the environment, they should pay to the damage. Same way, those who protect the environment, even through the mining, they are doing a lot of strategies. They should compensate, or they should get the benefit. Those are the things should be in the policy, right? So I think, hope you can understand in a mineral policy what are the things we have to discuss, and what are the point we need to address, right? And now, if you talked about Sri Lankan mineral policy, in the particularly Sri Lanka, as I know, there was a mineral policy which was drafted by Dr. J.W. Herath in 1996, and which was, according to my knowledge, which was approved. But the unfortunate thing is, I found one copy, but it's not much available. So if you have a policy, the principle should be all other things should be aligned with this policy, even our regulation, act, and practices and procedures. But I'm not sure we follow that policy. Even the 1996 to today, we follow this policy. So that is just a document, right? Then after that, 2016, Minister of Science and Technology, they were trying to, with I think NASTEC, they were trying to develop another policy, and they actually developed one draft, and finally that was not approved, and that means that is not legalized. Then in 2019, again, the Minister of Environment with the GSMB, they were developing mineral policy, and presently, as I know, they call for a public comments, and after that it is in the process. But still, I'm not sure that it was legalized and established in the country. That is the situation in the mineral policy. But as we discuss, as a geologist, we have a responsibility. We need a mineral policy because we need a mineral industry in the country. Otherwise, because that is the main duty of the geologist, we need to have a sustainable mineral industry in the country. So that's why we need a mineral policy. So always should support to develop this mineral policy. And again, we know that what is the mineral policy, what are the criteria we use, but we need to develop our Sri Lankan policy. As I explained, that is the situation. I think we consider these things. What are the available resources and their demand locally and globally? We have to have understanding. And also we need to have a qualitative and quantitative factors of those resources. That mean the reserve estimations or resource estimations and grade of the source, and where they're available, and those things must be there, and mine feasibility and nature and values of these minerals and competitiveness of the industries. Those things we must know, because if you don't know these things, just by looking some other countries policy, we can't develop, because we have to have our own factors, these things, and infrastructure facilities and the feasibility. That is also important, because we can say we can develop, we can do this kind of mining, we can process, we can produce this kind of product from the mineral, but we don't have an infrastructure, we don't have facilities, because most of the sometime, especially the energy, we to produce energy or generate electricity, we import petroleum and coal and everything from export. And if we use those things and develop the mineral or process the mineral or value add the mineral, sometimes that will not feasible, or sometimes that are not economically viable. That's why we have to understand about the feasibility and facilities, infrastructure facilities availability, and land use practices and policy. I explained these things. We need to consider seriously when you develop our policy, and complexity of institutional framework. That also, we know that in Sri Lanka, we have different institute, different goals, different agendas. So sometimes mineral industry may affect from these whole, because we need to have a proper link among these things, and the monitoring and implementation of project and those things, even the EIA and other processes. So we have to consider when you develop the mineral policy. And here just I'm outlining what are the important chapters we should include in the mineral policy, like minerals and the imports of the development of the country, issues and challenges, key elements of the policy, and promoting sustainable mineral extraction, and how to balance with the environmental conservation and international cooperation. Those things. So other than that, we have to address in this policy. We have to consider. And that's all about the mineral policy, how we develop and what are the criteria we use. And when you develop the Sri Lankan policy, what are the things to be discussed. Then I would like to go more insight into the Sri Lankan mineral industry, because all we know, but just to highlight something, Sri Lanka, all we know that we export few mineral commodities as raw form or semi-processed, and some few are used in the local industry. According to the records, our contribution for the mineral industry for the GDP 2.5%, and though we have identified or discovered many mineral deposits here and there in the country, covering most part of the countries, I'm not sure we are utilizing all these things sustainably and give the fully contributions to the national development or economic development. So we have to have a proper analysis of what we have, what are we have opportunities and markets and demands, and what mineral resources we should develop, which industries we should prioritize, and give the maximum contribution to the economy. Those things need to consider when you develop the mineral policy. And the global prediction is every demand is increase in one at least 1% annually. Then 2050, we think 60% increase than today demand. So that's why we need to consider our mineral resources and how to develop those. And these are the mainly, if we go more, we can, what are the mineral we use at the moment and locally and international market. For example, graphite and vein quartz and mica, we just export, and gems, including gems, and feldspar, calcite, dolomite, apatite, and clay, even in local industries. That is, we know all that. And again, we must know about, when you talked about the mineral local industry, the legal context. Legal context is actually, as I explained, the top document we have to consider is a constitution, that Article 27 give the government should protect and promote the environment and trustee of the all the natural resources, right? So our mineral state policies that all the natural resources, trustee of the all natural resources in the government, right? So that is under that developed so many other acts. One is Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, Act number 33 of 1992, and amended one. There, the GSMP has given powers to regulate all these mineral resources, but still that is affect that they have to consider the Section 61 of the Environmental Act number 4780, because all the standard and compliances given by the Environmental Act need to follow by. That's why those are some legal things at the moment we have to consider when you develop the mineral industry. And okay, so that is the basic of mineral industry. Then I should try to show you, have mineral policy. There's a mineral policy triangle, I can tell you, because I'm trying to give you what are the criteria, how these things need to be incorporated. We have to think about country's mineral industry and changes and trends and the global changes, other political, environment, and all the things. Because the mineral industry will affect on all these changes. So when you develop, we have to think, and that's why I told you we can't develop within a black box. We have to think outside. So these are the things we have to consider, right? So uh, I'm what I'm going to tell you about the global changes. So just even our lifestyle, even if we just think our well-known 30 years, how changed the technology. Now we use all the smartphone, Wi-Fi, and television, LED, flat TVs, LED bulb, electric vehicles, GPS, and even the smart buildings, materials, and renewable energy, and also automation and robotics, artificial intelligence, and all these things. People just think 30 years back, we use radio with transistor, we use tube television, and we didn't have a smartphone or even the mobile phone, and vehicles are oil driven, and we didn't have a GPS or whatever the drone technology, ATM transaction like this. So how they develop, people think about that, get your even the smartphone industry has been changed. Even if you LED bulb or flat TV, many industrial changes are there. Even the mineral industry. Earlier, we only mining and mineral, when you talked about iron and copper mining and those things, coal mining, and after that petroleum. Then after that, people talked about the other elements like platinum, tin, and even the gold mining and some strategic elements mines are there. Then now where are the trends? Now the trend is mining of we call critical metals like lithium, nickel, energy generating critical metals. And also trend is the rare earth elements, mining the rare earth elements. Because all these technology developments need these new raw materials, advanced raw material. So mining industry also change. So when you develop our policy, we have to have understanding about this change and also the future production, future prediction, right? So therefore, we need to have some understanding the global changes when you develop the mineral policy. Hope that this slide is easily can understand because we are practicing these things. Another thing is the mining and mineral industry always affected the environmental regulation. When the environmental regulation increase, mining and mineral industry goes down, then our policy should balance in these two. That also just I want to highlight here. And our mineral policy when we develop at the moment, you know that we have produced cement and porcelain, fertilizer and rock tiles and aggregate. So with these, can we happy? Or because we need to have a proper understanding about the global changes, where the world is going. Based on that, how we can develop our mineral industry. And in the world, as I told you, many things are happening, right? We are just producing tiles and ceramics and fertilizer and those things. But what is happening in the world? The electric vehicle production and demand and the use of batteries, new batteries, it's skyrocketing like this. And also sales of lithium-ion battery in different industries, cellular phones, portable PCs, and many other things. You can see all dramatically increase, right? These things. That mean the lithium, nickel, many other critical metals are coming into the business. So we need to think about that. Also, this is the global semiconductor sales. How is increase? Right. So then we need to develop our policy while thinking these changes. Right. So that's why the future mineral industry depend on the science and technology advancement, population growth and urbanization, environmental concerns and regulation, global economic crisis, even the attitude of the people. Do we like to go to the again cart and drive without, do you like to give up the mobile phone away? No. And also the global politics at the moment, you know that when you talked about the rare earth element, China is always trying to have a monopoly. Then other the countries trying to break that monopoly. Like that, the mineral industry also affect these global politics. So based on that, we have to develop our mineral industry. Therefore, I should tell you that when you develop mineral industry and mineral policy, we have to have some component on the global mineral industry and also the global changes, especially technological, human lifestyle, geopolitics, all these things. So that is my conclusion. Or I think I cover some of the things which is maybe not highly technical, but based on my experience, I developed this presentation. Then thank you very much. I think over to Dr. Pul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Premasiri. So the today's topic towards sustainable mineral resources management with an effective mineral policy. So our resource person, Professor Ranjith Premasiri, on behalf of the Geological Society of Sri Lanka, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation and sharing your expertise and valuable thoughts about this subject. I'm pretty sure that the audience, those who joined, was benefited from your insight. For taking time for preparing this valuable presentation and delivering this speech amidst your busy schedule. So also I would like to thank all the people who joined online for this lecture, taking your valuable time. I'm pretty sure you are benefited from the valuable ideas and thoughts that's given by our resource person. So thank you very much to you all.
Thank you. Thank you.